Hey, welcome back to Missy's Enchanted Channel. Well, we're going to be still continuing the series of the True Tales of Ghostly Encounters. We're on series 2 now, so yeah, let's get started. All right, so I'm going to be reading right now. I got the message. On Saturday, January 23rd, 1965, 3 weeks after my father, Frederick Kendall, died, I had an experience that proved to me that life survives this plane of existence. At noon that day, I walked into my mother's house in Short Hills, New Jersey, and found my mother, Natalie Kendall, eating lunch in the living room as she watched a tennis match on television. I decided to let her be and to stroll around the house just to check things out. I went upstairs into my mother's and father's bedroom. I opened the door to my father's walk-in closet. Totally lost in thought, I must have spent about 5 minutes looking at my father's things, shirts, suits, shoes. By the time I shut the closet door, I was overcome by a deep sadness and the realization that I would never again hear my father's voice. He and I had been very close, and I was going to miss him terribly. Tears came to my eyes. Instead of going back downstairs, I went into the hall bathroom to try to pull myself together. I splashed my eyes and face with cold water. Instead of helping, this made me break down altogether. All the pent-up emotions I had tried so hard to control over the past few weeks came flooding out. No matter what I did, the sobbing continued. Since I was trying to comfort my mom, I certainly didn't want her to see me this way. Finally, to snap myself out of my distress, I concocted a lie. Why am I acting like this? I said to myself. Dad never really loved me anyway. As I spoke these words, I gained strength and control. At the same time, however, a feeling of guilt took hold of me. Then, at the precise moment, an unspoken message sounded inside my head. Go downstairs, it said. Your mother has something to tell you. I knew that as soon as I opened the bathroom door, my mother would call to me, and I knew exactly what she would tell me. To this day, I can't explain it, but it was as if I had written a script and my mother acted it out. I opened the door and stepped out into the hall to hear my mother call. David, please come downstairs. I have something to tell you. As I entered the living room, she said, smiling nervously, You're going to think I'm nuts, but I just got a message from your father. He insists that I tell you that he loves you very much. David A. Kendall, Madison, New Jersey, January 1984. Oh, that was sweet, you know? Sometimes you have to tell yourself lies just to get through things, but he knew it wasn't true, and he found out in the end, So, yeah. That he couldn't lie to himself anyway, so. All right, now we're going on to Grandpa Called. My father-in-law, William Raines, had several light strokes. The last in the fall of 1942 left him bedridden for 3 months before he died. I had to care for him as if he were a child. He had to be watched all the time so that he would not harm himself or someone else. Before I ever sat down to eat, I fed him first and sat with him while he smoked his pipe, because otherwise he would hide it, still lit under the covers. 2 weeks after he passed away, we were all seated at the dining table for an evening meal when suddenly I heard him call, Girl, girl, as he was in the habit of doing whenever we would sit down to eat. I was always having to jump up to see what he needed. I started to get up to go to him when it dawned on me that he was no longer there. I went on eating. My 9-year-old son Glenn glanced up at me and said, Mom, Grandpa called you. His eyes got big when he too remembered that Grandpa was no longer alive. Both of us heard him plainly, but we said nothing more. Several times after that, my husband and I were awakened during the night of the sound of Grandpa's rocking chair. But when we went to his room to check, there was no more rocking. Wow. That's pretty cool. I mean, he's just giving her a sign that he's still there. So, yeah. So that's Leon L. Nash, Hudson, California, February 1987. All right. Now we're going to go on to the Blackboard Ghost. There was in green and white a message scrawled on the blackboard in the penmanship of an old, unsteady hand. If G-D is with us, who can be against us? Above it, written in the same white chalk, was a Hebrew phrase in perfect, right out of the prayers book print. The six of us looked in amazement at these words, not believing what we saw. This was impossible. No one had been in the house since the board had been erased earlier that day. The third floor of Annette and Steve's 100-year-old Victorian home had been covered into a playroom for their two young boys. Having just moved into the house a month before, the kids used the room to their greatest creative advantage. Its novelty had not worn off yet. The room was a conversation piece, and when guests arrived, it was the most popular feature on the house tour. Annette and I had been chatting with our husbands when my brother came downstairs. "I love the blackboard room," he said. "Who wrote the Hebrew on the wall?" "What?" screamed Annette, as we all flew up the stairs to confirm the sight. The appearance of this chalk message was unexplainable, but a strange coincidence put this handwriting in a more supernatural light. Annette and Steve were trying to refurbish their home in the style of the 1940s. The man who lived at the house then was in his 80s and lived nearby. Annette invited him to dinner the following week to pick his brain about how the house had looked and where to put several artifacts they had found lying around the property. Annette and Steve were very excited about learning about the house in its glory days. Apparently, this gentleman had been very attached to the residents in his life there. 2 days after the discovery of the unexplained handwriting, Annette received some sad news. The former owner would not be coming to dinner after all. He had passed away 2 days before. Did the former owner send a benevolent message about his life and feelings for this place? We'll never really know, but the timing gives us reason to suspect it. Very interesting. Do you think it was him? I actually do. Mallory Yolan Cohan, Stamford, Connecticut, March 1999. All right, now we're going to be moving on to I Learned a Lesson. I will never again leave a letter lying around in which I have spoken ill of the dead. My father, Fred B. Wells, died on April 10, 1972, at St. Joseph's Hospital in Hillsbury, Wisconsin. He had been a brakeman on the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad for 40 years. The next year I traveled to England, Wales, and Scotland, returning to my home in Janesville, Wisconsin on September 28, 1973. On September 30th, I started a letter to Dad's cousin, Lois Jewell, who lived in Anaheim, California, to tell her about my trip. "There's such a chauvinist attitude about the men over here," I wrote. "The deodorant ads are slanted for women only, and only the women have to pay to use public restrooms." And, I added, "I can sure see why Dad was such a stubborn Englishman. He came by it naturally, just like the men in that country now." I found myself growing sleepy about midnight, so I left the letter unfinished on my desk and went to bed. I hadn't been asleep long when I was awakened by the sound of my father's footsteps in the hall. Not the slow, shuffling, arthritic footsteps of his last few years, but the quick, impatient sounds he had made as a young man. I turned at the bedside lamp and frantically shook my husband, Bill. "Did you hear that? Someone's in the house." I couldn't bring myself to tell him I recognized the footsteps, but they had ceased abruptly when the light went on. "You must have been dreaming," Bill said. "Turn off the light and go back to sleep." I did, but again the footsteps started. I thought I would faint with fear as I snapped on the light. Bill had heard the sounds, and now he got up. Grabbing a baseball bat from the hall closet, he searched carefully through the whole house. He found nothing. I was afraid to turn off the light. "It's Dad," I told Bill. "I know it is. I recognized the way he used to walk. A burglar wouldn't walk that fast. He'd walk more steadily." "Nonsense," Bill retorted. "Your father is dead, and there are no such things as ghosts." I lay for at least an hour with the light on, my heart thumping. Things stayed quiet, so I finally turned off the light. Immediately the footsteps sounded, this time right alongside the bed. When another sinister sound began, I flipped on the light. Horrified, I watched the dresser scarf on the bedside table flapping up and down on both sides. like a bird about to take wing. Almost hysterical now, I poked Bill and pointed to the flapping cloth. Seeing this, he did not protest when I left the light on for the rest of the night. At daybreak, I finished the letter and sealed it into an envelope. The presents never visited us before the night I wrote the letter, and has not returned since. In my own mind, I know Dad was disturbed by my comments about him. He was a good and loving father who never laid a hand on me, but he could be stern with anyone who talked about loved ones in a demanding fashion. He had let me know I had said the wrong thing about him in my letter. His ghostly visit taught me never to speak or write ill of the dead. Shows you not to write ill of the dead, because they'll let you know about it. Eleanor Richardson, Janesville, Wisconsin, January 1983. All right, so I'm going to read probably just one more, because this one's kind of long. When dreams became reality. I was unprepared when my mother phoned me and told me that my childhood friend Donna had just passed away. My first reaction was that my mother had gotten it all wrong. But as she read the obituary, I realized that it was true. The obituary, however, did not reveal the circumstances of Donna's death. I couldn't rest that night, so I wrote a letter to Donna's mother, telling her how sorry I was and asking if she could tell me how Donna died. While I wrote, I cried, I wept into the night. In the early morning hours, I fell asleep at last, and I dreamed of Donna. It was like no dream I had ever had. It had a difficult, ineffable quality. There was a heavy, palpable gray mist surrounding the dreamscape, and Donna's image rose from the mist of it. She was sitting in a wheelchair. I paid no attention to the incongruity of seeing an able-bodied person in a wheelchair. Okay, that word kind of stumped me, guys. Sorry. I knew my mother was wrong. I knew you were still here with us. I cried with sheer joy, running toward her. She spoke to me, though her lips never moved. No, she said, and held up a hand so that I would come no closer. I'm only here to tell you that there's no reason for you to grieve. If I had lived, this is what I would be. I realized that her arms and legs were atrophied and that she looked nothing like she had in life, full of expressive beauty. Instead, she slumped in her chair, inert. If I had lived, I would never have been the same, she said. But you're here, I argued. Yes, Donna assured me, but only to help you understand that this is meant to be, that I have done what it was I needed to do, and now I have moved on. It was time and my body was broken. With these last words, Donna's image faded. I awoke feeling drained, but somehow healed. Weeks later, I received a response from Donna's mother. She reported that an aneurysm in Donna's brain had ruptured while giving birth to her daughter. Prior to the birth, no one had known about the aneurysm, including Donna. Then the words in the letter echoed what Donna had said in my dream. If Donna had lived, she would have never been the same. I put the letter down in awe. The dream had been a prophetic preamble to the letter. I knew that Donna had survived, but in a different world. While I had always believed that our consciousness survives death, the dream confirmed it for me. That was Donna's gift to me. She did not visit my dreams again until years later. I had suffered from asthma for many years, but in 1993 I experienced such bad attacks that I felt they could become fatal. When they intensified, I felt physically and emotionally as though I might die. The feeling was so strong that I began scribbling letters of love and affection to my family, tucking them away on my nightstand. My intuition warned me that something ominous was about to happen. At the height of my illness, Donna visited my dreams again. The same unmistakable feeling followed her sudden interest. It was almost like having a television program interrupted for an important announcement. She stepped forward and came right to the point. What do you want? She asked, as though I had called her away from something important. You are grieving again? I feel death all around me, I told her. Yes, there is death around you, Donna confirmed. Does it have to be? I laminated. When will it happen? In July, she told me. But it's almost July, I cried. There will be a death in July, she reiterated. I had the impression that She had given me foresight to steady and ground me, just as her parents in my dream had helped me come to terms with her untimely death. But it was not my own death that she heralded. On a Sunday morning in July, we received word that our 24-year-old nephew, Ed, had died in a car accident. I began to realize that my dream conveyed something more than prophecy. It communicated a deep spiritual message, confirming that all things in life go according to a divine plan. How could there be foreknowledge without some form of predestination in the cosmos? How could I be informed of something that hadn't happened yet if no plan existed? I felt enlightened and transformed, the same way someone who has had a near-death experience might feel. I sensed in the deepest part of me the presence of a wondrous force that gave me life purpose and traveled with me as I made choices. The grandest gift of the discovery was that I could draw on that knowledge to find comfort and healing during times of turmoil and tragedy. At last, I learned to pay attention to dreams, to appreciate their truth and wisdom. I found that dreams can guide us, help us find solutions, clarify choices, enhance our relationships, avoid and survive tragedy, and generally stay in tune with the people and events in our lives. Lynn Jeffcott, Bettendorf, Iowa, April 1999. That was pretty cool. And you know what? I believe that people can come to you in their dreams, after they died. Only because when my grandmother passed away and everything, I wasn't there that day. Well, actually, I was there like in the earlier day, and she didn't remember who I was. She remembered my sister, but for some reason she couldn't remember me, and it hurt. So before she passed, the day that she did pass away, I swear she came to my dream telling me that she did remember me in a dream, saying I didn't have anything to worry about, that she knew, who I was. So I believe that. I really do. And I believe she still comes in my dreams every so often. So I believe that. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy this. If so, please give it a thumbs up. And I'll probably hop on again tomorrow to do some more. Like I said, this is going to be a long, drawn-out series. But it's all like little things, different stories, and they all have their own, things about them. Very interesting. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you again tomorrow probably. So stay safe, have fun. Don't forget to subscribe, and let me know if you're liking this so far. Bye, guys. Keep smiling. Mwah. See you later.